Good evening and welcome to Cheltenham Borough Council Licensing Subcommittee Alcohol and Gambling being held on the 20th of February. My name is Councillor Simon Wheeler and I've been elected to chair the meeting tonight. This meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough, by Cheltenham Borough Council on YouTube channel. And the recording of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in transmission to the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until the issues have been resolved. If you are here making representation to the meeting, you are considered to consent to the use of sound and video recording for broadcasting and training purposes. Please be aware that CCTV and audio recording is being in operation in public gallery. The recording will be held by the council for 5 months, and I don't think we've got anyone up there. Also, please note fire alarm tests are not expected, so if the alarms do sound, please make your way out through the doors marked to your right. Moving on to the agenda. Have we got any apologies? We've got an apology from Councillor Diggory Seacombe and Councillor, Harman is substituting for Councillor Seacombe. Any declarations of interest? No. Right. Moving on then. The first item, which was determination of a temporary events notice at 7 Pittville Street, has been withdrawn, and so we'll be only having the one application. Excuse me, I don't seem to have the other item here. Excuse me, man.
Do you want to address?
Yeah, I've only got the temporary event notice.
Okay. Do you want to just read the?
Yes. Okay. So the next item that we do have, unfortunately, I don't seem to have on my computer for some silly reason, is 284 the High Street, an application for a premises licence. Can I give it over to our...
Thank you, Chair. My name is Jason Kirkwood. I'm the team leader licensing. This report was put together by Louis Krog, the head of public protection, and that's the name on the report itself. Just to clarify that, this application is a new premises licence for the premises at 284 High Street, and the applicant has requested sale of alcohol by retail for off sale every day between 0700 and 2300. The applicant is RSN Retail Limited. We have had no representations from what are called responsible authorities, so that's the police, environmental health, those type of bodies, and we have had 3 representations from what are called other persons, so residents or businesses that have wished to comment on the application, and those representations are attached to Appendix 2 of the report. In terms of local policy considerations, Cheltenham Borough Council has a statement of licensing policy, like every other council in the country. This explains how Cheltenham Borough Council will administer and enforce in relation to the Licensing Act on a local level, and there is a degree of control that the council can have in what it says in that document. That is listed in the report. I won't plough through all of that. The only bit that I did want to flag up is that we do have core hours that are listed for licensable activities, which is there to guide all parties to the process, which suggests in this part of the town we do have two separate types of area defined in that policy. An off licence would normally have a commencement hour of no earlier than 9 o'clock, and it would have a terminal hour of no later than 11 o'clock, 2300 hours. Obviously there is potential for discretion either way of those times, but those are effectively the kind of core hours that the Cheltenham Borough Council has set down in its policy. So there's a need for some reasoning for the council to depart from that policy. Either way, so if the council was to set the terminal hours earlier than 2300 hours, it would need some evidence to justify that, and equally if an applicant wished to open before 0900 in the morning, then there's a need for some convincing of the council to depart from its policy. We've got national guidance, which was issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act. Again, I won't go through the detail of that. It is contained within the report, but there is some helpful information at 6.3, which talks about conditions. So if the councillors are minded to attach conditions to this application in any way, shape or form, there's some information in there that should be considered just to make sure that we are attaching conditions in the right way and that they're enforceable and that type of thing. Each application must be considered on its merits, and obviously we are all here to try and promote the licensing objectives, and that's done by an applicant by way of their operating schedule, and it can be done by the councillors in terms of setting conditions if they think that it's necessary to do so. In terms of comments from the licensing team, obviously there is a plan of this location attached at Appendix 3, and there is also a plan accompanying the application itself at Appendix 4. Key points to highlight, obviously everyone will have read the report, but just a couple of key points to mention. Members must be mindful that this is a new application and must be determined on its merits. Any representations in relation to a likely increase in crime, disorder and public nuisance must be carefully weighted in light of the evidence presented to the committee. Members will also note that there is referred to existing issues faced by objectors in the vicinity of the premises at 284, with a suggestion that the licence may exacerbate those issues. In relation to this, members' attention is drawn to 7.3 in the report, and in particular the steps identified by the applicant in their proposed operating schedule to promote the licensing objectives. The committee must be confident that these proposed steps are appropriate to the promotion of the licensing objectives. Members are advised to disregard the comments in relation to the community value of this premises. That is not a relevant objection. So where there's a discussion in terms of needs of the area or whether an existing service is already well represented, that's not a consideration for the committee this evening. Okay, that kind of thing falls more under planning. It is about the consideration of the impact upon the promotion of the licensing objectives. Also, any concerns in relation to issues that might be covered by other statutory or regulatory regimes are not, again, for discussion in this forum. So, for example, issues that might be controlled by planning or by building control, or even by environmental protection legislation in terms of certain issues that might be raised. Then public nuisance is a consideration for the committee, but there are certain issues that might be highlighted that may be best served by other pieces of legislation that are out there. So we do all need to be cognizant of that, because this hearing is here to determine the application in relation to the licensable activities that have been presented, and in relation to the promotion of the licensing objectives. So it's particularly where people access this process on an infrequent basis, it can be a little bit more complicated, but hopefully that explains what we're all here for this evening. That's my report, unless anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Yes, I've got to say to members present, because this is a regulatory item, members must be present and have heard the proceedings in their entirety to vote on this item. If we can now move on, do any members have questions of the licensing officer? No. No members, sorry. You will get your opportunity shortly. So if not, the applicant and their representatives, do you have any questions for the licensing officer?
No, thank you very much, Chair. That's most kind, particularly balanced report, for which our thanks.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
And now the objectors, do you have any questions for the licensing officer?
It would be, am I able to, as I have a document to read from that document, knowing from what you've just said, that only some of it will be applicable, as it will be somewhat difficult for me to pick out certain aspects from what you're expecting?
I mean, as I said when I presented, where we've got objectors to an application, it's obviously very clear sometimes that it won't be a process that they access on a frequent basis. You're not legally represented, and so obviously the process can seem a bit more complicated and can seem like a minefield. You've made a representation which obviously is contained in the bundle. You've presented something which has been circulated. I'm not sure if the applicant's got a copy of that yet or not. But you've obviously provided that to amplify and clarify.
No, don't accept it, no. With respect, sorry. We can't deal with something.
No,
Thanks very much indeed. We haven't received that copy. I don't believe that, I think the time for service of that has actually passed, and we can't, on the hoof, address new information this evening in front of you. So with respect, we don't accept it in accordance with the hearing regulations.
Thank you.
We only got service of the document today, I think. So copies were made prior to this, to obviously in preparation for whether it was going to be shared or not. I think that from looking at the document earlier on, it was the reason that the gentleman provided it was to assist himself in making his presentation tonight. That was my understanding. And I think that he was doing that to assist the committee tonight and to obviously assist himself. On my initial looking at it, it's an amplification and a clarification of what he's already said. Obviously, we'd rely on our legal advisor whether it's going to be shared. I think the point that I was going to make was that the representations that have been made are obviously talking about a number of issues which different people with different perspectives may think are relevant or not relevant to this application. Our members are well versed in what they should be considering and what isn't for consideration tonight in terms of what's relevant to this application and what's not relevant to this application and might be considered as existing ills that might affect this particular location. So I think that I would say, obviously we'll rely on our legal advisor if it's happy to be shared. I don't think it will make too much difference whether people have got that physical copy to read from, because I'm sure the gentleman's going to present and our members will filter what they believe is relevant and not relevant. So.
Right, so if we can go back, do you have any other questions? Right, so I've asked the applicant. Oh yes, so we moved on. So the objector, oh, that's the right way around. Yeah. Objector, you have now 10 minutes to make your case.
So a very brief introduction. I'm James, this is Teresa, my wife, and we're here to object to the licensing for being granted for 284 High Street. I own the flat above outright. I've broken down the objection into several parts, which would be the prevention of crime and disorder, the protection of children from harm, and public safety and the prevention of public nuisance. So the first section being the prevention of crime and disorder. Well, I welcome the police report. It doesn't reflect a resident's perspective of living here. We have daily broken bottles thrown down our alleyway, a local hangout for the local alcoholics and teenagers. We have homeless people literally on our doorstep. We've found needles, people peeing, defecating down the alley. I've had my windows smashed. The family shopper has had to stop selling single cans to stop the alcoholic drinking on the streets. We've had fights break out frequently, people removed by the police from the alleyway. We've had a Channel 5 reporting on Cheltenham outside of our house for an arrest, weekend public disorder, smashed glasses, bikes and groups of teens outside of the family shopper, which is the shop next door. The difference between the family shopper and 284 is that the entrance to our house is next to the door. We have 4 people, plus my wife being pregnant. We have 6 people above us, including 3 children, 3 people in the building next door, and about 20 staff of the Bar and Walk, so it's a very busy entranceway. While I understand your nature of your job and your neutral stance, I would like you to imagine how you would feel walking towards groups of rowdy teenagers and drunks. This is something we have to do outside of the family shopper and quite likely 284 High Street if it sells alcohol. The difference between a Sri Lankan supermarket, which this gentleman plans to open, and a late-night supermarket selling alcohol changes the type of clientele and the problems it will bring. So the next section, public safety and the prevention of public nuisance. So from a public safety standpoint, the entrance to our house is next to this shop. My wife does not feel comfortable walking past or through groups of aggressive teenagers that hang out outside of the family shopper, which will most likely move to the new location. There will be kids dumping their bikes, behaving poorly. We have in the past had to navigate down our alleyway full of drunks while I have a conversation with them about how they should not be there. We have on several occasions had to call the police, which has resulted in defiant behavior and arrests. As both a psychotherapist and a primary school teacher, I believe I have a duty of care to those around me, offering tea and chatting with the people in distress who I have found down the alleyway or outside of our building. I have housed or found accommodation for drunk racegoers who have found their way to the alley. And to make a point, these venues that do sell alcohol do not deal with the aftermath of drunk people. In that document I've sent you, I've got a couple of pictures to give you a demonstration of what actually goes on around the house. The third section, the protection of children from harm. So as both a teacher and a psychotherapist, as I've mentioned, I know firsthand the difficulties children face with poor sleep hygiene. This building houses 4 children and 1 on the way. The proposed hours of 7 to 11 will not offer my child, my pregnant wife, anywhere close to what they need to rest. We already have to move our rooms around to have a relationship with the tenants above to kind of have a sense of peace. So they will have a room where they can be active and not go into certain rooms so my daughter can sleep. So highlighting some of these issues, I've come up with the government document of Working Together to Safeguard Children, which is a statutory guidance 2023, something both you as councillors and myself working for the council must abide by and both take responsibility in. And 2 of the points there would be, nothing is more important than children's welfare. Every child deserves to grow up in a safe, stable and loving home. Whilst it is the parent and carers who have primary care for their children, local authorities working with partner organisations and agencies have specific duties to safeguard and promote the welfare of all children in the area. And of those 4 main safeguarding points, 2 that are apparent is preventing impairment of children's mental and physical health of development, taking action to enable all children and young people to have the best outcomes. And set out in the Children's Social Care National Framework, the following principles apply here too. Children's welfare is paramount. Local authorities work with other agencies to effectively identify and meet the needs of children, young people and families. And local authorities consider the economic and social circumstances impacting children, young people and families. And when it comes to that economic standpoint and social circumstances, I also believe this is important. As mentioned, you said not to talk about community, but I believe I offer a lot to that. I have worked hard and bought a place that I can afford. Should it be that as my place of residence, being on the high street, mean that I should not be afforded the same rights as others, to enjoy my home and be able to rest at a reasonable hour? Besides the opening hours, this business also has a roller shutter, which also might not be connected to what we're talking about, but it is a big thing for us because with the opening time and the closing time, it shakes the house. It's extremely noisy. Going on from that, it wouldn't be right for me to say about my daughter without some facts, and the facts are, my daughter is 2, and the NHS recommends 11 to 14 hours of sleep. The desired hours of the business are nowhere close to this. My wife is pregnant and needs rest, but will she be afforded this luxury? The future owner has a child. I imagine he would do anything to protect his child, as I am doing for my family. Yet the response I've got from his has been nothing short of, I'm going to do what I want. The current freeholder chose to monetize the space above this business. And I believe by choosing to add residential units above, the business underneath should reflect this choice and respect the tenant's rights to enjoy the premises as noted in the freeholder landlord covenants with the tenants, which I have a copy here. And section 4 on that states, as long as you comply with all of your covenants and obligations under the lease, the landlord should not interfere with your ownership and enjoyment of the property. By offering these long opening times, selling alcohol and minimal sound protection, I believe as a landlord, he will not be complying with his own covenants if he was to take over of the freehold. While I understand improving Cheltenham's vacancy rate, which currently stands at about 8.8%, is vitally important to Cheltenham, I do not believe it should be at the cost of even one child and their development. This supermarket and its future owner has every right to open, but the selling of alcohol will only extend the opening hours and bring trouble to the entrance of our house, and the long hours will cause undue stress to our families. And I would like to note that the family above, having limited English, were not aware of this shop until I brought it to their attention several days ago. Likewise, the police officer living next door to us was not in the country to make an objection. So if an argument was to be made that the family shopper can stay open till late, I would counter this argument that the entrance to the residential area is separate. Furthermore, the building structure of the building is different, which I've also provided pictures to. The building that comprises of Family Shopper, Great Western and Lucky Oom have a concrete floor and also have adequate soundproofing between the floors. Furthermore, every single building on the high street has a drop ceiling to help with the acoustics, which was in place before the renovation that is no longer there. After I contacted building regulations, the owner had not put in an application for the building regulations under material alteration, and as quoted by Victor Atwood of the CBC Building Control, with regards to the soundproofing of existing buildings, building control has no control over the existing buildings. If works are found to be in contravention of the building regulations, then works will need to be rectified. And what I take from that is, as it is an existing building, you can do what you like. The final page in which I have given you, it is all the businesses in the surrounding areas, including opening, closing times, highlighted for those that sell alcohol in yellow. The 3 that I have highlighted would be the Bar and Wok, Malinka, and the Family Shopper. So in closing, I believe that granting a license for this premises to sell alcohol will cause a public nuisance, will cause my family, especially my children, harm, and will offer little to the area while taking a lot. We currently already have Tesco, Family Shopper that sell alcohol, the difference being that both these venues have people that can disperse trouble, whether that be security guards or extra staff to deal with the issues. More importantly, Tesco's has no residential buildings, and the residential element of Family Shopper is far removed, with the entrance of the premises about 50 metres away and a concrete divider between them. And I will end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I've been quite generous on the time because I didn't quite notice time. So if I could move across to the applicant, and you also have...
Are there any questions first?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Members, do you have any questions of the objector?
Hi there. Just for clarification, I'll say we did a brief site visit earlier, just to kind of see what the gate's like, what the situation's like. Can I just ask the question, when you go into the gate, obviously that's access to your homes, is it, and presumably from that, access to Byron Walk for their staff as well? Is that it? Is it just is it a courtyard effectively where it just kind of stops, dead end? Or is it like a passageway that goes through?
So as you go through, there is no passageway. There is the stairs going up to our flat and the stairs going up to the other flat. And there has been an element of change because the council has instilled gates in the community of the buildings behind us, which has lowered the crime of people passing through. And so now it's more of a place of hangout, which has changed from the past of being an escape route to some degree.
No. Okay, then, do you mind switching your microphone off, please? The applicant, again, you have 10 minutes. I'll try and be as generous as I was for the objector.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Lucan from the Licensing Guys. I appear this evening as advocate representing the applicant here today, the applicant being RSN Retail Limited, here in the person of Niroshan Pranthraman. This will simply be a convenience store with off-licence provision. We believe that having a well-equipped, pleasantly designed store actually brings benefits to the local residents by way of the proximity for groceries, convenience for last-minute shopping, competitive prices, and fresh products. And let's be frank, these most certainly can only add value to the neighbourhood rather than making the area less welcoming. The applicant is investing a lot into the layout and design of the shop to ensure that it's been made up to standards deserved for Cheltenham, and also gives a first-class aspect and additional lighting, along with a safe haven within the high street, and create further new employment for local residents. Niroshan has a similar premises in Tewkesbury, and before that had a business in Bromyard. He has, in fact, over a decade of trading convenience stores with off-licences, and in doing so, he and his businesses have never come to the attention whatsoever of any of the responsible authorities. We now appear before you with a new application offering what must be seen as a comprehensive raft of inbuilt safeguards, which I will demonstrate offer the community the reassurance they rightly deserve. As you'll be aware, each application must be judged, of course, on its own merits. The significant merits of this application are that it is a quality application, correctly conditioned, with specific, appropriate, and proportionate control measures, thus minimising the potential that any licensing objective could be undermined. In this hearing, the burden is on the applicant to show that the proposed operation, supported by the proposed operating schedule, is capable of promoting the licensing objectives and will not undermine them. Any representatives opposing the application have the burden to show that these premises trading under the operating schedule before you will undermine the licensing objectives and demonstrate that with evidence. In our submission, any subcommittee properly advised could only refuse the application if it is found on the evidence of the representatives to be not capable of promoting the licensing objectives. So you may ask yourselves, why do the representatives, aka objectors, need to produce evidence? And that answer is found in paragraph 9.43 of the section 182 guidance, which clearly states, and I quote verbatim, The authority's determination should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, and proportionate to what it is intended to achieve. Significantly, there is not a shred of evidence before you today that challenges or criticises in any way the operating schedule, the applicant, or the designated premises supervisor whatsoever. Nor is there a history of disorder, noise complaints, or indeed any other cause for concern evidenced involving this shop, this applicant, or any of his other businesses before you, and that is an undeniable and self-evident fact. So first, let me walk you through who has raised an objection, or in this case, in fact, rather, who has not. The police, being the lead responsible authority and source of expert evidence on all crime and disorder in ASB issues within the Cheltenham area, have made no representation. The licensing authority, being the lead responsible authority for all licensing matters in the area, has made no representation. Trading Standards and Children's Services, the responsible authorities who protect children from harm, Public Health, who deal with substance misuse, and the Planning and Highways Departments and Environmental Health, being the experts on noise and pollution, and therefore the lead agency in the public nuisance licensing objective, all raise no objections. As demonstrated, this is an evidence-based decision-making process. You as a committee cannot be insensible to the fact that not one of the lead and expert responsible authorities has objected to this application or who has presented any evidence against it. You can therefore rightly assume that in the opinion of all the responsible authorities, the application does not undermine the licensing objectives. Otherwise, they would be here with evidence to argue vehemently against it, as is their statutory duty. We're left then with the objections from some of the neighbours. These no doubt come from good people. However, we need to think hard about what they're telling us. The first representatives complain about lack of soundproofing, a ridiculously high crime rate, needles, defecation and damage in the alley behind, and there being no need for another convenience store with an off-licence in the area. The second representative talks of crime, substance misuse and nuisance in the alley at the back and a lack of sound insulation. And the third representative has submitted a one-line report stating that there are a lot of problems at this location and they fear that another shop selling alcohol will cause more ASB. Okay, so breaking that down, my position is that the availability of alcohol does not make crime, disorder or drunkenness worse. The availability changes nothing. It's affordability and available spend that changes all. It really, really doesn't matter how many outlets there are for antisocial drinkers to buy alcohol, because once their money's spent, that's the end of it. There are other outlets where people buy and access alcohol down there already. And in my submission, the news that this shop has been granted a premises licence will not cause dozens more misbehaving drink-dependent people to suddenly descend on this locality. There may have been historic issues with the alley at the back, and I'm sorry to hear that, but that has nothing to do with us. We have, as the member before us has visited this area and found the alley is now gated and locked. Now, not only would the fact that that shop is now occupied rather than void allow a deterrent factor due to public presence, may we also make the offer of a keypad to go on that gate to allow access only to residents. I've also got this to say, paragraph 2.1 of the section 182 guidance makes it absolutely clear that the police are the main source of advice to the licensing authority on crime and disorder. The police take no issue with this application whatsoever, and with respect, it is not for others to stand in the shoes of the police. There's the suggestion that the area is already an ASB hotspot, and I've served the crime and ASB data for the area on the committee as part of our advanced disclosure. These figures simply do not suggest that this location suffers from ridiculously high levels of crime and ASB. That said, we recognise that all and any crime and disorder is important, especially to the victims and indeed the wider community. But I just set the verified and empirical facts and statistics before the committee as a matter of record. Drug taking may result if the store is licensed. Well, I'm frightfully sorry, but I fail to see the correlation. Niroshan is not a drug dealer. So any previous, present and future substance misuse can have nothing to do with him. Further, I'd remind us all that para 2.26 of the section 182 guidance states, and again I quote verbatim, that beyond the immediate area surrounding the premises, these are matters for the personal responsibility of individuals under law. An individual who engages in ASB is accountable in their own right, which means that what happens away from the shop is not necessarily Niroshan's responsibility, unless he sold alcohol irresponsibly, so to children or drunks, and nor will he, for we have in place strict implementation of a Challenge 25 policy which will not allow for alcohol to be sold to underage persons. All of our staff will be regularly trained with regards to selling alcohol responsibility under responsible alcohol retailing, level 1. And let me remind you, Niroshan cannot be held responsible for issues that existed before he came to Cheltenham. There's absolutely no evidence before us that Niroshan has ever sold drink to any vulnerable, drunken or misbehaving persons. Nor will he, as this is totally contrary to his established business practices. To avoid any noise nuisance during the evening, we'll have our notices displayed asking people to leave our premises quietly. The other complaints re sound insulation are frankly very much a matter for elsewhere. Para 14.65 of the section 182 statutory guidance clearly states that planning and building control measures, approval and the licensing regimes will be properly separated. That said, we have served upon yourselves evidence of the sound insulation being fitted to the roof of the premises, and that matter is within the hands of the building inspectors. As no regulated entertainment is entailed in this application, the provision of sound insulation is simply not relevant to the licensing objectives. You are also aware that the planning department themselves, as a responsible authority, have raised no objection to the grant of this premises licence. I lastly deal with the argument here that there are other outlets already licensed in that locality and therefore no need for another. In this regard, para 14.19 of the section 182 guidance tells us that need, and in this case need for another, is not a matter for the licensing authority in discharging its licensing functions and therefore is also an irrelevant condition. Let me now talk about fear and speculation. The representatives speculate that were you to grant this licence, then they fear
Can
that
I
further
ask you
problems.
to sum up? You've had...
Righto.
Yeah.
I shall whiz through as much as I jolly can in summary, sir. In short, para 9433 of the section 182 guidance clearly states that the authority's determination should be evidence-based and fear and speculation on what might or might not happen in the future or as a consequence of any decision is plainly not evidence. And I would draw your attention also to section 51 as a mechanism with which you are all most familiar. In summary, this hearing is simply about whether this shop, which in short, operating these hours in accordance with this operating schedule, including the comprehensive raft of conditions, will undermine or promote the licensing objectives. And very clearly our position is that it will not undermine them, and all the responsible authorities raise no issue with its substance, content, and in the additional inbuilt safeguards. We've established there's no record or history of indelible evidence of noise nuisance, pollution, safety, ASB, drugs, or crime or disorder issues within the operation of this premises or indeed any other cause of concern, evidence involving this shop, this applicant, or any other premises with which he is linked. That is an undeniable and self-evident fact. Consequently, I respectfully request that you do indeed grant this application for the premises licence as sought, supported by the comprehensive raft of effective conditions and any others you may deem appropriate and proportionate. And in doing so, you wish Niroshan every ongoing success going forward with his new and welcoming convenience store. Thank you for your patience, sir. No.
And if you could switch your microphone off, please. Thank you. Well, personally, I think there's two areas of comfort you've given me there, the security at the side and some insulation, which I'm sure will be of some comfort to the objectors should we agree this licence. But can I go on? Do any members have questions of the applicant? Councillor.
Thank you for that. I had a quick question. Already the gate and the side of the property, obviously, thank you for the offer to put in, you know, a coded access, because I think that would hopefully alleviate some of the concerns of random people having access to this to this gate. Are you the owner of the property? Do you have the rights to do that effectively? Is one of the questions that I had really.
We're not sure.
No.
We're not sure, frankly. But that's our offer. That's not our alley. We do not control it. Many other people travel up and down it. It is gated, as we found when we did a visit. It is left open anyway. It's not his customers. He's never sold any alcohol to anybody. But if it's a clincher and it gives you the reassurance that you want,
We'll pay for
he's
it.
offered to put a key fob on it that everybody can use and will deny unauthorised access to an alley with which he has nothing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay then, debate. Does anyone want to start a debate?
Thank you. I should say I'm Tim Harman, Park Ward Councillor. I should say yesterday morning I walked past the shop, didn't go in, so familiarised myself with it. A couple of comments I'll make, and I'll come and say some other things. I am aware of the antisocial behaviour issue in that part of the world due to other contacts, not immediately here but elsewhere, which does bear out a number of the points that the objector has made. Indeed, about 4 or 5 years ago, I took part in a litter pick in the area, a voluntary litter pick, helping the MP and various other people, and we did indeed find syringes, etc., in the area. But I have to say, of course, that was some while ago, and was happening then is happening now. So what we're looking at today is an application that, you know, doesn't retract what's already happened, and it shouldn't necessarily be, as it were, impacted. So I think that's one point I'd like to make. The other point I would like to make, I would welcome the idea of the keypad for the gate, if that is possible, if it would improve the situation, should the committee grant the permission. And one would hope, perhaps something can't be conditioned, that there will be a sufficient sympathy from the applicant towards any other residents of the area, should situations arise that we cannot foresee. Because there's what the licensing committee can do, and there's what you as neighbours and part of the community can do. Yes. In my experience as a councillor, those latter issues are often far better to resolve the issues. That's my comments, Chairman.
So, yeah, again, I think good news on the gate. Obviously, that's not something we can condition, but it is good that the offer is made, and hopefully that's something that can actually come to fruition with the property owner. Same again on the soundproofing. I don't think that's a condition that we can put in place, but it is good to hear that there's soundproofing intended. My only kind of couple of thoughts, really, having the CCTV there, having the premises open, could, in theory, deter some of the ASB and some of the people loitering around down the alleyway, because there is a presence. That is something that obviously could be a potential benefit to the area, because there will be less people thinking this is like a dark spot, this is an easy place to go down. That said, on the other side of the coin, obviously our default and licensing times for the area are 9 till 11. So in terms of, rather than the 7 till 11 that's applied for. So one of my questions maybe is does it do enough to warrant being open from that 7 o'clock time, or would that 9 o'clock time allay some of the public nuisance in terms of, you know, families sleeping upstairs, etc., etc. If it's opening slightly later, well, not slightly later, if it's opening at the times that normally businesses are approved to open in the area, would that, you know, alleviate some of those issues in terms of people being able to sleep, etc. But public nuisance was obviously the point. Thank you.
Us to address that, sir.
Yes, I think that would be.
Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Now, we're not aware of any ASB and crime and disorder that's going on down there between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay? The reason we ask for 7 and 9 is that some people work shifts, become people on whatever, and they like to stock up after work. Now, clearly, what you want as a licensing committee around ours is what you will have. Okay? And we don't challenge your authority in any way. But he's asked for 7-Eleven. We'd like it if you can accede to that, and we don't think that alcohol sales between 7 in the morning and 9 in the morning is actually the substance of the objection that lies before you, sir. But that's just our respectful observation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, I'll just put my 2 penneth in. I do welcome the two, as I said before, the two things you've offered to consider further sound insulation and an offer towards the security at the side. I think, much as many people would like, we can't blame, as has often been said, I see this in both planning and licensing, we can't blame a future business for problems that currently exist. Though having said that, if it should prove in the future that this business is causing unnecessary harm, whether it be antisocial behaviour or selling alcohol to minors or whatever, we have the authority to withdraw the licence at that point. But we can't refuse an application because of what might be without some good sound reasoning behind it. So that's where I stand. Now, as the applicant, you have a right to reply to everything you've heard. I would ask you to keep it brief, but then we will go to the vote.
Yeah, we have been. I'm aware this microphone's not working in front of me, but I'm hoping that I am loud enough. Okay.
Usually.
Yeah, usually. Right. Okay. We've been overtaken by events because building approval, building regulations inspectors have already been into the premises and looked. I sent photographs of the sound insulation going in during that process over the last couple of weeks to Mr. Grogg and his department, a member of which sits on your right-hand side. It has since been inspected, and according to the building regs, the sound insulation is sufficient to mitigate any noise coming from that shop. I can't give evidence on their behalf, but that's my understanding. And clearly, if they've got a problem with it, they'd be here to explain that problem. So that's where we're up to on that front. We're not insensible to what this gentleman is suggesting, okay? And that is why he's made this offer to route deny that alley to his home address, even though the current occupants and residents leave it open anyway for people to go up and down as they see fit, which I think is a more than a generous offer. Consequently, I respectfully request that you do indeed grant this application for the premises licence as sought, supported by that comprehensive raft of effective conditions and any others that you, as a panel, see fit to impose, and in doing so you wish Neerashan every success going forwards with his new business, his convenience store, and if there are any problems in the future, you're absolutely right. You have the resort to your Section 51 review powers, and I'm sure you are not scared to use them. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid not. The applicant has the last word in this case, apart from the members well, now the resolution is either to grant the application as requested, modify conditions attached to the licence, or reject the application. I think we might as well take them in order. May I have a show of hands to grant the application? That has been carried, so I don't feel that we need to move on to anything further. We voted on, so that application has been granted, and officers will get in touch with you with relevant details. Okay.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay.
Attaching any conditions to that?
Yeah, I was going to say,
Are you
is that
attaching a
as
condition
grant?
about the keypad? Or?
No, I think it was not to condition it, but to ask for it to be done, wasn't it?
We asked it. We can't really...
Just for clarity, we can't condition the keypad, but obviously it's going to be minuted that you've put that forward.
That's
So,
a genuine offer, and if it can happen,
yeah,
because you've got to think about the fire escape routes for people living upstairs and
Yeah.
their accessibility to the keypad.
but if he can liaise with the neighbours, and then that just will put everybody. I'm hoping that will put everybody's minds. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And then we can't condition the soundproofing anyway. So
No.
that's, yeah.
But likewise, it's nice. Oh, help. Now I've lost.
You close the meeting?
Yeah, no, I haven't. So, yes, I don't think there's any other matters of any urgency. So at that, I will close the meeting at 6 minutes to.